Mr. Wall, a question. Gonna change it up a little bit. Throw a little bit of the curveball at you. I want to know what your biggest challenges are right now as a creator, but I want to take it actually a step back. Let's go back like 10 years, 8 years, whatever it may be. When you were just starting out, what was your biggest challenge you had to face as a creator? And how did you overcome that? Because you clearly did based on your position now.
That is a really interesting question. So about 10 years ago, when I was getting started as a content creator, I was working a full-time job, working from like 1 p.m. to like 10 p.m. Then I'd come home and I'd start making content at like 11 p.m. or so at home, and I'd make content till like 4 a.m. And my biggest challenge at that time was, number one, I was way too emotionally involved in the content and the success of the content. So I would take every comment to heart. I would take every mistake I made in the video editing or the voiceover to heart, and I would get extremely frustrated and worn out with every piece of content that I made. And because I had this deep emotional connection to everything I was doing, it made everything I was doing super, super dramatic. And I was in my early to mid-ish 20s at that time, and I think a lot of people that are at that age kind of feel that way or operate that way, where they put their emotions into their business. And for me, that was the biggest challenge, was that I would get emotionally worn out making content when it didn't get enough views, or when I didn't get that script back from somebody, or when the video had a mistake in it and I released it. I would just be focusing on it all day, and it would just tear me down. And the problem with that is that because I was so emotionally involved with the content all the time, and it was so overwhelming to me all the time, I was unable to think about the business behind all of it. How was I actually going to make money? How was I actually going to make a living making all this content and creating all these audiences? I was only focused on community building. I was only focused on audience building at that time. And the reason why, it turns out, the reason why I was so emotionally involved is that I got into content creation in the first place because I didn't feel like I was good enough. I wanted recognition from other people. I wanted the internet to tell me that I'm good enough. And because I had an emotional need I needed to fulfill by making content and putting it on the internet, I only got emotional benefits, if you will, and emotional consequences from it. And I didn't get that much financial benefit from it. And so that is a really problematic way to approach content creation. And it created huge challenges for me at that time. I wasn't making enough money, and I was just super worn out all of the time. And I thought every little thing was super dramatic, and it didn't allow me to see the battlefield. It didn't allow me to see the war from the fight I was having right in front of my face at any time. And I think that that is actually the challenge that probably half of small to no growth creators are facing every day, is they can't see beyond their own face. They can't see beyond their own emotional take on their situation. And eventually I was able to overcome that.
Okay, so the need for acceptance, you mentioned that. I think that's a key here, because I think that's actually very, very, very common among people in the creator space. I think a lot of people get into the creator space based on that ideology alone. So what was your path to overcome that?
My path to overcome that? Man, honestly, I was able to overcome it by taking a job. So I was a full-time Twitch streamer at the time, and I was making content all day, and I was getting so emotionally crushed essentially by doing that kind of work every day and having to put my full emotion into every live stream. I was doing this insane character. I've talked about this before on the podcast, and I decided to go be a startup and executive guy instead, because honestly, it looked easier to run a startup. And then running a startup and starting a business is one of the hardest things you can do. But that was easier than me being a full-time streamer. I was getting hundreds of concurrents, sometimes 1,000 concurrents on Twitch, and I had all the audience things I wanted. But the emotional toll that took was too much, and I decided to go work in the creator space instead. That ended up working out, obviously. That's how all of us met, and we ended up making an insanely successful gaming creator network. But the way I was able to overcome that is, as I was doing this job in the gaming creator space, I kept trying to put my emotional needs into my job. And every time I kept doing that, the job essentially kept telling me, no, businesses don't care about emotion. They just care about making money. And so I kept trying to fulfill my emotional needs through my job. And the business was like, no, you need to go ahead and focus on sales and content acquisition and making money. Go do that. And so over and over again, I kept trying to get this emotional thing out of the content creator space, and the content creator space kept giving me business back. And so over time, that helped me tamp down this kind of unhealthy emotional need that I had from content creation over the course of 6, 7, 8 years. And now today, I think I'm 80% business, maybe 20% emotion when it comes to the approach. Whereas before I was about 80% emotion, maybe 0% business. And so that's how I overcame it. I mean, and you might say, well, maybe soul-sucking corporations crushed you into what you are today. Maybe, but that's where I am. And now, because I'm more business focused, and now I can relate to people that have the emotional thing that they need from content creation, I can now coach people to success. Because at the end of the day, the business is everything for the success part.